Good evening, everybody. How are we all doing? Sorry about the crackles there during that piece, which was softly spoken from last year. Little instrumental piece I put out. Using mostly the Presonus Symphonic Orchestra brass section, but also featuring my good friend Luke Richards on flugelhorn. He's a much better flugelhorn player than I will ever be. So that was him. And the rhythm section, the upright bass, the guitar, and the piano and the drums was all done in the studio. So, and that was actually in my old place, the older, smaller studio. So the drums are actually done in the hallway with just this mic pointing over the top of the drums. So everything was done with one mic. So apart from the brass, as I say, that was all the Presonus Symphonic Orchestra brass section. So that was a fun piece to do, and I intended to follow that up with an EP, but that never happened for a variety of reasons. So yeah, so here we are. We are getting, as you can see, a little bit Christmassy. I make no apology for being Christmassy at all. So if you like Christmas, great. If you don't, that's okay. Just, kind of ignore the kind of, the little tree lights you can see around my head and the little bells up in the corner there. Just ignore all that stuff. Let's see. Mike Neighbor is here, and Heel Flip and Raina and Bob T, Just Bob are all here. Wood Beast, Dooley Still, Kelly Winters as well is here. Everybody's here. All my regulars pretty much are here, apart from Jonny. It'd be nice if Jonny drops into the show at some point. Nice intro, Jonny says. Wood Beast, yes, thank you. Kelly's found me. That's good. Let's see. Woodby says DS click click click. I'm not quite sure what that means. Kelly asks, is the Presonus Symphonic package included with Studio One version 4? No, it is an add-on. It was originally an add-on for Studio One 3.5. But no, it's not free. You have to purchase it from the Presonus shop. It's really good. It's a really good. You can't compare it to something like the Vienna Symphonic Orchestra or the East-West Symphonic Library or the LA Scoring Orchestra package. You can't compare it to those. Those are like $600, $700, $800, $900, $1,000 plus libraries. The PSO is, £100, $100 and under kind of price bracket. But at the price point that it sits at, it is extremely good. I would say at that price point, it is probably one of the best libraries out there because it is better than the price point in quality, in my opinion. They've actually done pretty well with it. Quality of the samples is pretty good. There is, in some of them, there's maybe a little bit of artifacting here and there, but for the most part, the samples are very, very good indeed. So if you don't have the Presonus Symphonic Orchestra and you're thinking about maybe adding some orchestral elements to your songs, like for example the song that I did for the December 10th challenge, which was called Faces and Places. Is it Places and Faces or Faces and Places? I can never remember. Faces and Places. There we go. Yeah, that song that I did for the December 10th challenge basically is rhythm section plus pretty much the whole orchestra and my vocal on the top of it. So if you don't have it, it's well worth getting because it can add real some very cool elements to your songs, to your songwriting. So definitely worth getting, even if you don't use it too terribly much. But if you do, it also comes with a whole bunch of what they call music loops, which are actually quite good and actually quite useful. I did a video series on it, which some of you may well have seen, and the last video of that series features the music loops. And one of the things I did do is I took one of the music loops and then put some really funky drums to it as well, and kind of turn it into kind of like orchestral funk kind of thing. So those kind of things, they're useful, they're worth having. But yeah, there we go. Yes, around about $100. Which is what Mike Neighbor confirms. Ken Moss says Audio Deluxe has a coupon that makes it about 85. Well, there you go. And Bobby says more than I have right now. Well, yeah. Well, you know what? You don't have to have it. It's not something that you must have. To be honest, none of the Presonus add-ons are things that you must have. They're not essential purchases. They are useful. Like, you know, all the Fat Channel additions, those add-ons, they are useful. They provide you with extra colors for mixing that you ordinarily would not have natively in Studio One. So, you know, those are beneficial, those are helpful, those are useful, but are they essential purchases? Must you go out and spend the money? No. To be honest, you can do everything that you need to do with just what is available natively in Studio One for free, the stuff that comes with it. Also, Plugin Alliance occasionally do some free bundles as well. A while back, they I don't know whether excuse me, I don't know whether they still do, but Studio Presonus did a bundle with their interfaces, where when you purchase the interface, you also get a bundle from folks like Klanghelm and Plugin Alliance and stuff like that, and you get a whole bunch of plugins for free, essentially. And I think they called it the Studio Magic Bundle. Whether that's still applicable or not, I'm not really sure. I'm not 100% sure. I'll have to check. But those kind of plugins are really good. I've been using the Brainworks Opto compressor that comes with that Studio Magic Bundle. Been using that a lot. I use Klanghelm plugins a lot because they are cheap. And they're extremely good. Like if I would say one purchase, I would just say just go and buy it, for goodness sake, because it's so cheap. It's absurdly cheap. And that is the MJUC compressor by Klanghelm. And essentially it's 3 compressors in one. Because you get kind of like an old 1950s style compressor, and then you get a 1960s/70s compressor, and then you get a nice modern one, all rolled into one. And it's got so many different features. It's got sidechain filtering. It's got saturation added to it as well. It's really, really good compressor bundle. Very well worth having. I use it a lot. I use it for a variety of things. I use the MJUC on vocals. I use it on acoustic guitars. I use it on I use it for parallel compression. Done that as well. Very well worth getting. Yeah, the metal pack is essential for metal in Studio One. Yeah, I quite agree with that. And I think that's about $85 or so, I think, if you've got a coupon with Audio Deluxe. That's the last time I saw. Oh, Mike confirms that. That's cool. $83.99 with your coupon. Easy shortcut for metal sounds. Absolutely. Couldn't agree with that more. So there you go. Just Bob asks, Johnny, what's the MP3 converter DVD video soft? Yes, that's the one I recommended to you. I will show my screen, and let me just move over to here, and I'll show you how it shows up on my screen anyway. So it comes up like this, but you also get there's a couple of other pieces that you can get with it. You don't just get this audio converter, you get some kind of DVD authoring thing as well, which I don't actually use for the reason that you stated, that it gives you kind of an audio watermark and a video watermark, which you don't want. So but this free audio converter doesn't give any kind of watermark at all. So I'm surprised that you were saying that it does for you, unless they changed it, because I got this ages ago. I maybe got this, let's see, let's actually go to the properties and see. because this should tell me. Yeah, I got this a couple of years ago. There you go, 2016. And it's a tiny piece. It's a tiny piece of software. It's only like 1.4 kilobytes. It's nothing. Yeah, 4 kilobytes on your disk. But yeah, it converts stuff from WAV to MP3 and back again. But it doesn't just do WAV. I think it does a few other file types as well for audio. It also converts MP4A into MP3 as well. That's another thing that it does. Because I've had to do that a couple of times. And that's pretty much that, really. So yeah, I hope that is useful to you. Actually, I don't think you could actually see any of that. I don't think you could see any of that, could you? Because I don't think you're actually looking at my screen. What's MP4A? It's basically the audio from an MP4 file. So yeah, I don't know whether you saw any of that, but basically this is what it looks like. This is the little shortcut that comes up on your desktop. And as I say, I've had this since 2016. It's not a particularly big file, and it just literally does what it says on the tin. It's just an audio converter. And I've not seen it make any watermarks of any kind, audio or otherwise. So I don't know what was going on for you there at all, and I apologize if it might have changed. They might have updated it and decided, a lot of people seem to be downloading this and we're not making any money out of it. This is rather unfair. We should watermark it. If they do that, then I'm sorry. I did not know that they did that. Heelflip says, I paid $30 for the metal pack. Well, that's cool. Bobby Booth says, I also use the MJUC Junior. It's got a sound all of its own and it's free. Yes, the free version of the MJUC is basically a combination of what they call the Mark 1 and the Mark 2. Basically, you get Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3. So it's a kind of combination between the 1950s style one, which is the Mark 1, and the 1960s/70s one, which is the Mark 2. And it's absolutely free. Go to klanghelm.com and go to MJUC Junior, and you can just get it for free. And it's extremely good. It really is. It's just 2 dials, and it's extremely good. In fact, you know, we can, for those of you that maybe haven't seen it before, we can go and look at it, because as I say, I do have it. Let me see. I'll switch over to my screen in just a minute, and I'll do a comparison. Let me see. Let me pin that there. Okay. Let me just show my screen, because I probably should. Yeah. So here it is. This is the MJUC Junior, and it's such an easy compressor to use. Basically, you get this compression knob, you get fast, slow, auto, and then you get makeup. And that's essentially all it does. And it's a little bit like the compressor on the channel strip, the native Studio One channel strip. Not the fat channel, but the channel strip. You know, Johnny Guy's favorite plugin in all of Studio One plugins. He loves that channel strip, and I can see why, because basically it's a one knob compressor. You just turn the compression knob, and you then select the time constraints, and it does everything else for you. It does the attack and release for you. So if you're kind of not, you know, you need to use compression, but you're not really 100% confident with being able to work out your own attack and release times, then this guy is incredibly useful to you. So if I were to open up my mixer just for a moment, I hate it when all this stuff opens up. It annoys me incessantly. Let's see. Get my sends up there as well. And all of that. Okay, so that's this guy. And this is free. This costs you absolutely nothing. But if I was to get its older brother, the big boy out here, let's move that over there and that over there. as you can see here, you get a whole lot more functionality. You get the 3 types. You can adjust the size. You also have this automatic gain compensation feature. You have a high quality feature, and you can calibrate it. So I have it calibrated to -18. So basically 0 dB is -18. You can have it in compression limit mode. There are 6 different timing options here. And again, you have the compress and makeup knob. That's just the Mark 1, which is very, very smooth. It's so smooth. It's smoother than a baby's bottom, to be honest. And then you get the Mark 2, little bit more modern and a few more options. So you get attack, release, you get variable ratios, 2:1, 4:1, 8:1, and a limiter, which is like, I think that's 12:1. And then you get these density and eye stage. So you get like a compression over 2 stages with this eye stage button, which is very, very cool indeed. And you get this little drop down here. And this gives you some little, you can change the timbre of the compression. So you can either have it dark, or you can have it hi-fi. Now, when they say hi-fi, they basically mean clean and crisp, and you know, kind of no coloration to the tone. Whereas this is kind of like progressively more coloration to the tone. And then you've got a drive feature, which is just going to add some saturation, so you can really thoroughly drive it, or you can have it straight clean. You've got a sidechain filter and a mix knob, which you can use for parallel compression. Then you get the Mark III, which again is, it just takes it up a notch. So now you've got a high ratio, which is for limiting. You've still got this little drop down tray here, but you've also got this little punch slider here, which I'm not entirely sure what this does, except it seems to kind of accentuate your attack time. So if you've got a slow attack, let's say you've got it slammed over here, but you've got the punch knob right across over to number 3, somehow it adds extra punch to your attack somehow. Don't quite know how it does it. I'd have to ask Tony, the guy that builds all these plugins, how he does it. I don't know how he does it. But this is an extraordinary little compressor bundle. Well worth getting if you can, in my opinion. Let's go back over here to the Christmas view, is what I'm going to call it for now. Bobby says, I've got all the Klanghelm products. Good man. Yes, I thoroughly recommend them. The company's run by a guy called Tony out in Germany, and he's a one-man operation, and he basically builds plugins that he would use. So if he finds, hey, I've got a need for a plugin, and there isn't really one out there that does what I want it to do, he makes one, is what he does. And he's extremely good at it, and then he sells them for cheap. You know, 25 euros, which is going to be about $26, $27 maybe. And really well worth it. He'll flip as, will you still do videos on compression? When I learned a free MJUC Junior, maybe I'll upgrade. I'm new to third-party plugins and understanding compression. I do actually have a series on compression, which if you were to sign up to my email list, and there is a link to it in the description below. If you sign up there, you automatically get access to my series, which you can download and have on your computer. So you don't have to have YouTube open. You can just have the video files right there. So you don't have to open YouTube to reference them. The video series does exist on YouTube, but what I've done is, if you join my email list, you get direct access to this series, and you get to keep it on your computer forever, and you don't have to keep on opening up Chrome and YouTube and have all of that running in the background whilst you're running Studio One, which can eat up processing and RAM. So, which is why I don't do Chrome and Studio One at the same time. It's just not worth it, especially if I'm, you know, using a lot of plugins. So yes, you can go and check that out, join my email list, and you get some nice emails from me, as regularly as I can. The idea is that I was going to send an email out every week. Kind of hasn't quite worked like that, but 2019 it will work like that. You'll get a weekly email from me on a variety of different things. So there will be some kind of like tutorial kind of things in an email. There will be some exclusive content that doesn't go on my YouTube channel or my website, and all that fun stuff. Oh, the other thing you get is one of my songs from my EP, which is called Chanel. So if you join the email list, you get the stems to that song, and you can mix it, and you can put that up on your portfolio to attract clients, so you can show off your skills as a mix engineer. Cool thing is that song is actually a little bit of a challenge to mix. There are some challenges to overcome, and so yeah, by all means do that. Put it up on your portfolio. All you need to do is just credit me as the artist and the mix engineer, and as the artist and producer. And, you know, you can say mixed by you on it. That's fine. Okay. So go ahead and do that if you haven't done already. And I do believe that Jonny Gibe has walked into the room. Yep. Studio One for Learning Library is here. Oh, and he's changed himself into Jonny Gibe. That's cool. Hey, Jonny. Good to see you, buddy. I was wondering if you were going to come into the show, and that's cool. I'm glad you're here. This was really going to kind of like be my first foray into being festive, and then we started talking about plugins. And somehow we got onto the subject of the Klanghelm MJUC compressors. Don't quite know how we managed to do that, but we did. Yes. Poof, I'm Jonny again. I'm Jonny now. That's cool. Let's see. Drapark is here. Good to see you, mate. And Rainer is, of course, still here. Rainer is over in Germany, so it'll be 1:30 in the morning for him. You are a late bird, my friend. I thought I was the late bird around here. Just Bob has given me $50. Oh, that's going to have to get a fanfare. And an extremely low note, just because I can. Just Bob, thank you so very much. I really appreciate that. That's just outstanding. It really is just outstanding. Thank you so very much. That's very, very, very generous of you. And yeah, I'm kind of a little bit... And it takes a lot to get me speechless. So thank you so very much. That is so kind and so generous. I really appreciate it. I don't know what to say next. That's very cool. That's just awesome. You guys are fantastic. You guys who come on my show, and I don't have a lot of people that come on my show and watch and comment. But you guys, every single one of you, are fantastic. You have supported this this weekly Sunday Night Live since I started it way back. I think in 2016. I think I started it, and you guys have supported it absolutely solidly, even when my internet was so poor that it would be, the picture would freeze, it would be pixelated, the audio was awful. I may as well have, you know, just like sent a carrier pigeon. And it would have had the same effect. But you guys have been there through all of that, and then now, you know, we're here and we have like internet that is just like 1 billion times better, and I'm able to do the shows how I always wanted to do them. And you guys have just been so patient and so generous and so kind with your time and with your comments. I appreciate you guys so very much, all of you, every single one of you, including you. You guys are great. Kelly Winters joining the party with $10 as well. Wow, you guys are just mental. Now Jonny Gibe is joining the fun. I swear you guys are just trying to make me speechless. Jonny says, we both have the best group of fans, don't we? Yeah, we do. I hesitate to call them fans because I don't really want to be a star in that sense. You know what I mean? But I really do appreciate that you guys, you know, you guys invest a lot of your time on weeknights and on Sundays to hang out on mine and Jonny's channels. And, you know, you look up to us too. And we often ask ourselves, I'm sure I can speak for Jonny on this, we often ask ourselves, why do you guys look up to us? But we really appreciate that you get a lot of value out of what we teach, and our experience as engineers, as songwriters, as musicians, you know, that we share that with you guys and we get that across. And we really appreciate it that you guys find it valuable and you've learned from it. And to be honest, that's more valuable than anything in the whole world as far as I'm concerned. And I'm sure Jonny would agree. So thank you so much. Jonny says, let's shoot for $100. Well, that would be amazing. That would really, that would have me on the floor, I'm pretty sure. I might have a heart attack. Thankfully, I have got a defibrillator right just over here, so we're good. Bobby Booth joins the club with $2. Bobby, I know you said, sorry, I can't give more, but you know what? Your $2 is just as valuable to me as the $50 and the two $10 donations so far. Just as valuable. The money, the amount doesn't matter. What matters to me is your heart, because that's priceless. Even if it is only $2, doesn't really matter. $2, $200, $20, you know, whatever. You know, it's what goes on in your heart that's the important thing. And, you know, I know, Bobby, you are at every single one of my shows and every single one of Jonny's shows. And that speaks massive volumes about the kind of character that you are. And that's priceless. Can't put a price on that. Ken Moss with $10 as well. Oh my good grief. You guys are crazy. Just Pop says $18. Let's do this. Mike Neighbor says, I'm broke till Tuesday. Oh wait, I'll still be broke then too. Maybe Friday. Wow. I really don't know what to say, guys. I really don't. This show is taking a turn. I don't know what to say. Maybe Kevin needs to take over at this point. Oh man, you guys are great. You guys are fantastic, aren't they, Kevin? Yeah, he's nodding. Who else can speak on my behalf? I'm sure this guy could speak on my behalf as well. Ah, dear. The toys that my kids have just brought in and said, hey, you should have these in your studio. And I said, all right then. Let's see. Mike says 2 jobs and I still have no money. Yeah, you know what? I know exactly how you feel. I really, really actually do know that experience, and it's hideous. You know, when everything goes out on health, everything goes out on rent, everything goes out on food, and, you know, with the way economies are around the world still since 2008, you would have thought, you know, hey, we would have moved past this, but we haven't moved past austerity. Austerity is still crippling people, and I know people that are working full-time in extremely good jobs that should pay, and on paper they pay really, really well. But here's the thing, they're having to rely upon food banks to survive because they don't have any more money once they've paid their rent and once they've paid their bills, or they paid their mortgage and they paid their bills. They have no money left for food, so they're having to go to food banks, having to go to clothing banks. It's just like, these people are working, they're working 60, 70 hours a week, and there's nothing to show for it. There's no wiggle room in their lives. And to me, it's totally ridiculous. And then you've got the other people at the other end of the spectrum who are just making all the money. But anyway. I'm going to get off my political soapbox for a while. Those who, you guys know me well. I don't really do politics on my show for a very good reason, because politics can be pretty divisive. But, by the same token, I do nail my colours to the mast. I am a socialist, and I have been a socialist all my life, and I don't think I shall be for turning anytime soon. But just so you know, that's where I'm coming from. You don't have to agree with me. I'm not asking anybody to agree with me, even if you think, you know what, that sucks, that's ridiculous, that's okay. I don't mind if that's what you think, and if that means that you don't want to watch my show anymore, that's okay too. That's okay too. But it's important that you guys know where I come from, and this is why I don't do politics on my show. I prefer to keep it about music, mixing, songwriting, mastering, arranging, all that fun stuff. Deer Creek Audio is the man. He has just chimed in with 80 bucks. Sorry, 80 bucks. 18 bucks. I can't read. 18 bucks, and that makes it up to 100. Thank you so very much, Deer Creek. I really appreciate it, mate. You and I have not talked for a good while, and I want to thank you for coming onto the show tonight and for that donation. That's very kind, very generous. Thank you so much. You guys are crazy. You guys are absolutely balmy. But thank you so much. You guys are amazing. There, I've said it again. I've said it. I'm going to say it about 5 or 6 times. Okay. Seeing as I have no more words, I think maybe you guys need to help me out here. So if you got questions on anything related to either the December 10th challenge, which is just passed now, but we can still talk about it. Maybe you can share something you've learned on it. Or if you want to talk mixing, mastering, recording, arranging, songwriting, let's talk. Get your questions in the chat just now. Just Bob says, I need to play a polka. You know what? I don't know how to play a polka. Fred says, I wish I had more to donate, but the budget is so tight, but I appreciate what you do. Fred, that means a lot to me, mate. That really does. So thank you very, very much, mate. Kelly says, teach us, oh wise one. How about transitional chords? Transitional chords? Do you mean transitioning from one key to another? Like what a pivot chord is, for example. Yeah, we can do that. If that's kind of what you mean by transitional chord, yeah, we can certainly do that. Transitional chords, pivots between one key and another. So I think I've often talked about a concept called 2-5-1 changes. And essentially a 2-5-1 is a way to get from one key to another and also to end a phrase. So, quite often you would hear you would hear reggae. I don't know why I've done that, but so you would hear kind of like there's chord 1 and then 2, and that pretty much ends pretty much anything. If you want to end a song, that would be a way to do it. Or if you want to end a section of a song, 2-5-1. So in the key of C, D minor, G7, C. But it's also a way to get from one key to another key. The way you would do that is by using a chord 2 and a chord 5 that belong to the key you want to go to. So this is where knowing your 2-5-1s in every key is going to help you massively. So the way you work out what 2 and 5 is by looking at the scale of the key that you're going to. So let's say we're going to go to the key of F from the key of C. So here's the key of C. So we want to go from 2, we want to do a 2, 5, 1 in the key of F. So where's F? There's F. So 2, so if this is 1, this is the one that we want to go to. So this is going to be the new 1. Then we need a 2 in that key, which is going to be G. And a 5, which is going to be C, because if you count up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's 5, which is C. So you're going to go 2, 5, 1. Okay, and that's in that, so that then brings you to the key of F. So going back to the key of C. We want to go to the key of F. So we want to do that 2, 5, 1 here. And now you're in the key of F. So let's say we want to go to the key of G from the key of F. So we want to do 2, 5, 1 in G. So that's going to be G. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 1, 2 is A, 5 is D, 1. So, but we're in the key of F right now. So we need to do that A minor D7 G to get to the key of G. And magically in your key of G. And that's essentially how 2-5-1s work. What's 2-5-1 for A minor? Now, if you're in a minor key, that's a little bit different because you're dealing with a different scale. Because you're dealing with a harmonic minor scale as opposed to a major scale. Major scale. Harmonic minor. So you've got some extra black notes to deal with. Okay, so you have to bear those in mind. So what you do with a chord 2 now becomes a little bit different. So if I was to do a 2-5-1 in C minor, I keep playing it differently because the first time I played the melodic minor, second time I played the bebop minor, and now I've played the harmonic minor. Okay, so this has a flattened third, a flattened sixth, or a raised fifth, and the leading tone is natural. Okay, so oftentimes what you find is that the key signature for C minor is the same as E flat major. So they have essentially the same flats in common. It's just that when you know that you're in C minor rather than E flat major is because you see that B natural from the harmonic minor scale. But that's a whole nother subject that we're going to get down if we're not careful. So to do a 2-5-1 in a minor key, you need to use a few of these black notes to make it work. So instead of going to D minor, what we're going to do is we're going to take that A at the top of the D minor chord and we're going to flatten it to there, and that makes it kind of like a diminished chord. And then the G chord is going to retain this A flat. Okay, so basically you go D diminished to G7 with a flat 9 to C minor. So if we're going to do that in A minor, which is what you asked, we transpose that down a minor third. So we would get, there's that B diminished, there's E7 with the flat 9, and there's A minor. So it's a little bit darker, Okay, so if I was to do that in A major, okay, and then minor. See how it's much darker? So there are different rules. There are different rules for minor as opposed to major. A long time ago, I should probably redo it, update it for kind of like the modern era. I did a two-part video series on keychain, the power of the key change, I called it. I did that maybe 3 years ago, and I probably should update it. But you're very welcome to go check it out, because I go into a lot more detail, and I explain a lot more of the concepts that I've just kind of glossed over a little bit for the sake of time. But if you go check those out, they're well worth watching, and hopefully it'll help you understand particularly the minor one. Most people skip over the minor one because it involves, you know, kind of strange sounding chords to make it work. You know, like flat 9 chords and stuff. They think, that's way over my head. But I do explain how those work, okay? So don't worry about that. And Rainer is away to bed because it is very late for him. So he says, late here and the night ends soon. Happy Christmas and Happy New Year. I'll be back in January. Have a nice, peaceful time. Rainer, you take care and sleep well and have a great Christmas, my friend. So there you go. Harmonic minors and diminished scales and that kind of stuff. Mike says I'm lost. Yeah. Well, for the sake of time, I've had to kind of condense what would take maybe 2 or 3 hours for me to unpack. Now, the 2 videos that I did a few years ago are not like 2 or 3 hours long, but they are of good length, and I do go into a bit more detail. And I've kind of glossed over some of the stuff here for the sake of time. But feel free, Mike, to go watch those, and don't feel bad about it, because, you know, you're probably dealing with concepts that you've never had to learn before, or never thought that you would need to learn before. It's the same with any concept in music. You know, the first time you come across compression, you have no idea what to do. It just seems so mysterious, you know, and so you don't understand it for a while, and it takes a while for you to get your head around the process of how it works, how, you know, attack and release work, how threshold works, how you know, the compression ratio itself works, and how you use the makeup gain, and what's the knee for, you know, and all of that. That takes a wee while for it to sink in and for you to understand it. And I know, Mike, you really know what you're talking about with compression. So this is the same thing. You know, talking about music theory concepts is the same as talking about audio mixing concepts like compression, like EQ, like notch filtering, like high pass filtering and stuff like that. You know, this is stuff that takes a little while to get your head around, but once you start applying it and doing it, you understand it and you work with it, and you go, yes, you know, for a certain sound on a kick drum, I'm going to use a slow attack and a fast release. You know, if I want something to have a lot of upfront presence and smack, and I want something to be forward in the mix, then yes, I'm going to use a slower attack and a faster release. But if I want something set back in the mix, I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to have a faster attack and a slower release. Because, you know, a faster attack closes the transient much faster, and therefore that gives the impression to your ears of it being set back further in the mix than something that has a slow attack. So, you know, those kind of things, they take a little while to get through your head, but once you've got them, you understand what you need to do with a compressor. And you also understand the difference between one compressor and another, like an opto compressor, a FET compressor, a tube compressor, a valve compressor, all of that stuff. You start to understand these things. It's the same with things like harmonic minor scales, melodic minor scales, major scales, major modes, minor modes. It's all the same stuff. You know, extensions to the dominant chord, like 13th chords, 9th chords, 11th chords, alterations to those extensions, like sharpening the 11th, flatten the 11th, sharp the 9th, flat the 9th, flat the 5, sharp the 5. all of that, those kind of things. It sounds mysterious and vague and complicated, and it really isn't. It's just, it's the same with anything else to do with music. When you start applying it, you learn it, you understand it, and you start to do it. And that's how it was for me. I've learned all of this stuff with key changes and chords and alterations to the chord and closed voicing, open voicing. I learned all of that stuff by just trying it out, to be honest. Nobody taught me. Nobody taught me anything about compression. Nobody taught me anything about EQ. I just sat down and worked it out, to be honest. I had a little bit of help along the way. Some people gave me some tips and some tricks and sped the process up a little bit. But really, nobody taught me anything. I've just sat down and figured it out, and and then try and work out the whys and the wherefores after the fact. That might be an approach that works for some people, rather than sitting reading a theory book. Just sit down at the piano and play and go, okay, so why does that work and why does that not work? Why does that sound so dissonant but that doesn't? Stuff like that. You might find that works for you better. There we go. I hope you can re-release those videos. Yeah, I'm probably going to do that early in the new year. Dan Soul says flat nines, my favorite. Yeah, I like flat nines as well. I like using flat nines in a major context as well. I know some people don't. Some people like to use flat nine chords strictly in a minor context. Well, sometimes I like to juxtapose. I like to use minor concepts in a major mode and major concepts in a minor mode. I do that quite a lot. The sax player, bass clarinet player, Eric Dolphy, the late Eric Dolphy, liked to do that as well. Like he liked to juxtapose a major arpeggio when he's improvising over a minor chord and vice versa, because it created a nice little dissonance that he liked. And I kind of do that as well. Mike says, I sit and play every day, but the theory part just doesn't gist with me. And you know what? It may never, and that's okay. That's okay for it to not work for you. If if you'd rather be much more instinctive about your music, absolutely fine. Paul McCartney's written some of the greatest songs that have ever been written. He wouldn't know one end of a major scale from the other. He really wouldn't. He a while back, he wrote a suite of songs to be performed with the Liverpool Philharmonic Orchestra to celebrate. I think it was one of their major milestone anniversaries. Anniversaries. And he didn't know what he was doing. He didn't know how to write for violins and cellos and French horns and oboes and all that kind of stuff. He had no idea, because he didn't know how to write, how to orchestrate. Didn't know any of that stuff. So he employed composer Carl Davis to work with him and to basically get his raw ideas that he'd worked out on the piano orchestrated across the orchestra. And what he came up with was absolutely beautiful. Beautiful music. Beautiful songs written all about Liverpool and all about Liverpool life and Liverpool culture. And really fantastic music. And Carl Davis's orchestrations were superb. But, so that's what you have to do. If you have a shortfall, a shortcoming, get somebody in who knows how to do that and who can take your music to the next level. Essentially, that's what we all do, Most of my clients come to me and ask me to mix their songs because they don't know how to mix, whereas I do. So, they can't mix, I can. I mix their songs, they release their songs to the world, and that's how it works for them. That's how they make their living. That's how I make mine. So, that's how it works. And don't ever be afraid of that issue. Let's see. Kelly says, do I record my sessions? Do you mean, do I record these shows? No, I don't. Mostly because YouTube does that for me. Otherwise, I don't know what you mean. Yes, thank you, Ken. Yes, the Liverpool Oratorio. Yes, it's awesome. I went to see the premiere of it. It was really, really great. It's probably the one and only time I've actually worn a dinner jacket and kilt outfit, apart from my wedding. I have a much more casual kilt outfit that I wear for events, but for my wedding I wore a proper dinner jacket and kilt outfit, and for going to the Liverpool Oratorio I wore that as well. Mika is here. He says, if it doesn't work simply by playing without instruction, then may I suggest either instruction or books on musical keys, scales, modes, and cadences, etc. Yeah, books can be very, very helpful. And Bob is just reminding us that we had $100 in donations. Yes, we did. Beatrice, my dear friend, you missed the the happy half hour at the start of the show, where donations were coming in left, right, and center. And I am absolutely blown away. Kelly asks, are your sessions available for replay for me later, like tonight's session? Yes. YouTube always records my streams. You just have to wait a little while for it to process at the end of the show, and then it becomes available on my channel, and you can just go watch the replay. And it's fine. You even get to watch the chat as well. So you get to see those donations coming through all over again. That would be cool, wouldn't it? So, Deer Creek says casual kilt outerwear only. Kilts are outerwear only at all times, my friend. Except if you're in extremely posh location, in which case, yeah, you probably wear something under your kilt. Bobby Booth says the guitar player whom I can't remember, but he didn't know what scales were. There's an awful lot of great guitar players out there that don't really know their scales, particularly. And often they're great innovators because they don't have any kind of like, you know, they don't compartmentalize things. You know, here's the thing. When you're improvising, knowing scales, knowing chord tones is handy. Very useful. Because you find your way around the chord changes of the song much easier, and you're less likely to hit notes that aren't going to fit. But it does mean that you have to apply a little bit more thought to the lines that you're going to play in your improvisation. And if you get particularly well practiced at that, like somebody like the late great Michael Brecker was. He was a genius, and he could play the most beautiful improvisations at the most bewildering of speeds. And you just wonder how quickly his brain is kind of concocting the next line, and then that's being transmuted from his brain to his fingers. And of course those scale patterns are so well drilled that they're right under his fingers. He knows the finger combinations instinctively for some of the most complex scale patterns that he would use, or arpeggios that he would use. So it does require an extra layer of thought about how you go about just playing, just improvising. Whereas there are some great improvisers who are very, very instinctive. They don't really think about what they're playing. They don't really think about what notes are involved, or what scale patterns, or what notes are going to fit against what chord. They don't really think about that. They just play what their instinct tells them to play. My dad is one of those kind of improvisers. And in his heyday, he was probably as good as Michael Brecker, except he didn't really have the same approach as Brecker did, but he could still play just as bewilderingly fast, and beautiful improvisations. So the thing is that things like scales, chords, key changes, chord changes, those kind of things, all of those are tools to help you make music. That's all it is. That's all they are. So you could argue the more tools you have under your fingertips, the more tools you know, and the more tools you are well versed and well practiced in, you could argue that the higher quality your music is going to be, but not necessarily. You could be extremely well skilled with 4 or 5 tools that you have absolutely drilled, and you are very, very proficient to expert level in those 5 things and make incredible music. Or you can have 25 tools and still be just as proficient and just as expert. It doesn't really matter. Know what you know and apply what you know, and apply it with excellence. Work hard. Work hard at what you do, and you'll get the results that you're after. Be that through the 25 tools or the 5 tools. Doesn't really matter. We're running out of time for the show. We are coming up on 1 a.m. I will stay on for a little longer because you guys have donated very kindly. So I'm going to stay on just for a little bit. Mika says, do you ever cadence to flat 5 structure? Very suspenseful, in need of... I'm not really sure what that word after that says. Yes, I have done. Yep. And even if I'm improvising on that kind of idea, even if nobody else is doing it and I do it, it provides a nice little dissonance, juxtaposed. Fred says, I play by ear and learning more about theory for guitar and keyboard. That's great. Classical composers typically have theory brains from Mars or Pluto. Steve Vai ain't a slouch either. Yes, Steve Vai really, really knows his stuff from a music theory point of view. And boy, does he know how to apply it. Alan Holdsworth is another great guitar player who not only was by and largely self-taught in what he understood of music theory, but he actually somehow was able to understand the guitar in a way that nobody else was, which is why he could stretch forth and reach for voicings that nobody else could. It wasn't just that he was freakily dexterous, but he also had this unique perspective on the fingerboard of the guitar. And he saw things as patterns. He didn't see things necessarily as, hey, that's a G chord, that's a C chord, that's a D chord, that's an A chord. He didn't really look at it like that, as kind of things that you learn kind of like by physical memory. He kind of looked at it as different patterns that he could play around. And so music became more about patterns for him. And so he was able to play really, really complex stuff and make it sound incredibly simple. And as I say, really, really complex chord voicings, because he wasn't really thinking about G major 9 flat 5, C minor 7, C minor major 7, sharp 11 flat 9. He wasn't really thinking that way. He was thinking this pattern, that pattern, that pattern, that pattern. And that's what he thought of, and that's how he worked. So he kind of had his own kind of approach to music theory. Incredibly successful for him. Jimi Hendrix, another incredible guitar player, who was very influenced by lots of different things. He was very, very influenced by music from Central and North Africa. He was influenced by music from the Caribbean and from Central and South America. But he was also influenced by classical composers like Bartók and Stravinsky. But he also used to listen a lot to jazz musicians like John Coltrane and Charlie Parker. In particular, he was fascinated with John Coltrane. Particularly Coltrane's later period, when he was starting to go for more out there kind of freeform kind of sounds in his kind of latter years. And Hendrix was really quite interested in what he was doing, and I think quite liked to apply that to the guitar. And certainly, he certainly tried to apply that kind of fiery sheets of sound kind of improvisational approach to the guitar. And, you know, notably a genius on the guitar, and actually had a profound influence upon Miles Davis. One of the reasons why Miles Davis started getting electric instruments into his band was because of seeing Jimi Hendrix. So a lot of different musicians taking lots of different approaches from other musicians. Oh, resolution was the word. Flat fives are in need of that moment back to the tonic or to a new key. Yes. Yeah, or you can just leave it hanging, to be honest. Mike Neighbor says, follow up from last week, you said we need hooks and important things to grab the listener, but also important to release stuff. Are in danger of losing potential listeners before we have all our skills? Well, a lot of you are asking lots of different questions, and you're asking questions at different levels. So I'm kind of like trying to address all of those things. But yes, hooks are important to your song, because that's what keeps the listener interested and keeps the listener engaged. You know, if you have a melody that just kind of meanders and wanders up and down and doesn't really have any sense to it, the listener's going to switch off in about the first 10 seconds, and then they'll just skip onto the next thing. You know, so important that you're able to grab your listener's attention in the first 8 seconds of your song. So, which is why the intro to your song is so important. How you start your song is so important, because in that intro you can summarize the entire content of your song in just those first 8 seconds. You can hint at the melody to the chorus, you can hint at the melody to the verse, and give the listener something to go, oh, this looks good. Oh, this sounds good. I think I'll stay for a bit. It's like the first 10 seconds of a film. It has to grab you. That's why we have trailers. You know, it has to grab you. It has to be something there to grab you that makes you go, I'm going to watch this. You know, you might be channel hopping on your TV, and you happen across a TV show, and there has to be something in there that grabs your attention that makes you watch it through to the end. So, you know, consider your intro to your song, how you start your song, as the most critical point in your song, because that is where you sell your song. That's your sales pitch, those first 8 seconds of your song. Or your music, whatever. And Kelly has just added $11.11. That's a very unusual number, but I love it. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Kelly. Very, very much. Deer Creek says, I had a terrier named Bartok, a kind of odd puppy. Well, Bartok himself was a bit of an odd puppy. Have you ever listened to his piano concertos? Or even tried to play one of them? Oh my gosh. There we go. I think we've pretty much reached the end. I think. If I have missed any questions that you absolutely must get answered tonight, please repost it in the chat now, and I will endeavor to answer before we wrap the show up. Because it is 7 minutes past 1 here. And I would like to go to bed very soon. But you guys keep chucking money in my general direction, which means I need to stay up. Deer Creek says, good night all, happy holidays and Merry Christmas. Absolutely, my friend. Take great care and have lots of fun. You got 5 ones tonight, JL. I'm going to scoot, says Kelly. That's great. Okay. Well, if nobody has any more questions, then that's great. We'll wrap it here. And I will say a very big thank you to everybody who has donated or who has asked a question or contributed in any way to the chat. Mika Han says, just started watching your show. Thank you, Johnny. Good night and Merry Christmas. You're very welcome, Mika, and thank you very much for joining in the chat and asking some really great questions, actually. Appreciate it. Appreciate you being here. I appreciate everybody's generosity tonight in very generously donating. What was the total there? $111.11, I think it was. Can someone just confirm that that's the total before we go? Just boss says, peace, Reverend Lipsham. Yeah, I'm not quite a reverend. There we go, $111.11. I love it. All those ones, that's fantastic. Thank you, Kelly, for making that happen. Appreciate that. All right, folks, have a great night, everybody. And as I say, once again, thank you very much for all your generous contributions financially and chat and friendship and otherwise. Really appreciate it. The next show will be on the 23rd of December. It will be our proper Christmas show. This is kind of like a slightly festive thing. But next week will actually be a proper Christmas show. And who knows, I may even talk to my good friend Jonny Guide and see if he wants to come on the show as well, and we will just have a Christmas party. If you're up for that, we will do it. I'm happy to do it, and if Johnny's happy to do it, then we'll do it. So, a very good night to everybody, and thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all very soon. In fact, I'll see you all on Wednesday, because it'll be Songwriting Simplified on Wednesday. So, I'll see you then, and we'll maybe do some kind of Christmas party on the 23rd on Sunday. All right, folks. Good night. Johnny says, yes, yes, yes. I think he likes the idea. Good night, folks.